This is the Strathmore 400 series hardcover watercolor art journal, and I'm going to help you make some buying decisions about it because I filled mine up and I've got some thoughts on it. It is 140 pound, 300 GSM watercolor paper, 48 pages in this journal, and where I live in Canada, it retails for $26.99, but I used one of those Michael's coupons to get it for far cheaper. I think maybe I paid $18 for it, and I thought that was expensive at the time, but as I came to use it and get through it and buy other more expensive watercolor journals, it's actually not a bad price. But that said, I think it has some particular use cases that I'm really not seeing addressed on other YouTube videos, so I thought I would make this one about it. So this is hardbound, and it has the upside of looking like a book when you're done, and a nice book at that. And it is landscape, I think, probably to really play into the urban sketching movement. I see a lot of urban sketchers using this book, and I also noticed that this is primarily available in North America. If you want a link to it, I will link down below. Links in the description, also in the comments if you want to check it out. I'm not gonna lie, when I first opened it and started using it very early on, I wasn't super impressed with it. This paper is okay. I do like that it's a hardcover, and I do like the size. I feel like there's more out there for me. A lot of people swear by this one, that's why I picked it up, and I'm like, it's okay. I just didn't understand what all the hype was about, and that was because I was making a particular type of art and I wasn't using it to its full potential. One of the things I didn't like, and this is really not the fault of the journal, just more about me and how I like to practice, is that it is in landscape format, and I could not find one. I don't know if there is one in portrait format, which would be this way with the binding on this side. That would be my preferential orientation in which to paint, but it's on its side and that's fine. But what I didn't like is almost right away I started noticing that the cover itself is just very, and I am not hard on my journals really. I mean, I do toss them in my handbag. I'm not that hard on them, but right away it sort of started to flake and just not look that good. It gets white, dirty smudges on it rather easily. We're just outside now, and I wanted to give you a bit of a closer look about what I'm talking about the patina that happens almost immediately. I really wasn't hard on this at all, but you'll see here the corners got dinged up almost like I put salt on it or something like that, and it shows all fingerprints, and you know, maybe that's okay if you're into that. If you're not, just be warned. I just would like for this to be a bit more resistant, or I'm not sure. I mean, I have other notebooks that are covered in cloth that just don't seem to mark up quite as quickly as this one or get dinged looking. So like I said, in no time it looks quite dinged up, and some people love that patina. I'm not the hugest fan of too much patina on my journals. Now, if you're enjoying this video and you want more like this, because I do have other journals I could test out for you guys, like a Hannah and a Talon's. If you want to see more like that, be sure to give this video a like and consider subscribing. This is a new channel, and that would really help me out so much so I can break out of YouTube algorithm jail. So at first I was a bit put off by the paper just seeming like it wasn't all that special. You know, the cover not really withstanding even light wear. But as I kept practicing and changing the types of watercolor paintings I have been making, it really came into its own, and I've come to really love this, and I will repurchase it at some point, and especially if I can find a portrait orientation. So here's what I think. When you are painting with not a lot of water and you're mostly maybe doing line and wash, it's overkill. That's what I'm trying to say. You don't need this paper. You can purchase one that's far less expensive than this journal. Not that that's super expensive, but you can buy maybe like a Talon's or something like that, where you get so many more pages and the pages are thinner. But what I found rather quickly is when I went from this style, and it was, you know, adequate. I just didn't understand what the hype was about. I really started to understand the hype when I started painting much wetter, much looser, with much more water, which is further on in the journey here. So this is an example of an urban sketch that I did, and it did suck up the water really well. It does play nice with quite a bit of water, but again, I could have probably gone with a lighter weight, less expensive journal. It didn't have to be this one, but fast forward to the future, when I started experimenting with watery, much more loose styles like this one. These are tutorials from Own Marwin, both of these, and I will put a link up to her content below. If you want to make these popsicles, or if you want to make these strawberries, go ahead and follow her. She's such a great creator here on YouTube. It really started to come into its own when I was using just a lot more water. I also noticed that you can paint the background and it just holds up really nicely. It doesn't get that wavy, all things considered. When I needed more water, and when I needed to even to mix paint on the actual page, that's where this really started to shine. The other place that it started to shine was if I made something I didn't like, You can cover it up pretty handily with gouache, wait for it to dry and go over it, and it kind of works a charm because it's so thick. I don't remember what I had painted underneath this, but I hated it. So I went over with gouache, then I went over with blue, and then more gouache on the top, and it handles it like a champ. I don't even think the page got all that wavy, all things considered, considering how much water and how many layers are on top of it. So if you're someone who paints with a lot of water, or you watercolor paint and you love to paint loose, or you like to mix pigments on the actual page rather than on your palette, this is an excellent journal for all of those things. This, for example, was so wet, and it just took the extra water, the extra pigment so well. Again, from Onmar Win. They look really nice. I don't know how well you can tell here. It sinks in right away. There's a slight grain on this. This is cold pressed paper. I'm not sure if it's got a lot of cotton in it. It's actually quite hard to find the composition of the paper. Even on Strathmore's website, they don't come out and say exactly what it is. So if any of you do know, please do leave it down in the comments. It really allows your watercolor paints to shine much more than a Talon's sketchbook would, for example, because that is mixed media paper. But I'd say even more than the Hahnemühle, which was expensive, very expensive compared to this option, at least where I live. And just visibly, the paper is very thick. They say it's 140 grams, but it feels thicker, and I don't know how that can be, but it just seems heavier, for instance, than my Canson XL. This is my Canson, but I find the cover so ugly that I cover it with something else, but somehow it feels like heavier than this paper. It just does. It's stiffer. Maybe that's what I'm trying to say. So by contrast, this paper does not take water as well as the Strathmore, in my opinion. This had water and paint pooled on it, and in terms of blooms, it wasn't so bad, all things considered. And I wasn't careful. This I did in just a matter of minutes. More really juicy, really wet paintings, and I'm really happy with how the paper interacted with the water and the paint. So that's it. That's the verdict. If you paint with a lot of water, I think that you're going to like this. If you paint really juicy, I think you're going to like this. If you're doing more line and wash, I don't think you need to buy this. You might feel that it's a waste to have such thick paper and you're putting so little watercolor down on it. So what I'm going to do going forward is save this notebook for all my more loose type paintings. Thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next video.